All right, out of the box or out of the wall. You know it. Oh, wrong way. Anyway, part 2. So you know my review of the first one. I enjoyed it, but it was this character that was starting to get a little bit annoying. However, this is a 20-minute longer movie than the part 2. Or than part 1, sorry. But is Katniss Everdeen more mature? Let's find out. Chase Liaki here with the Futon reviewing Mockingjay Part 2. What's this about? This is right after Part 1, and we are finally headed to District 1 to kill President Snow. But how are we going to get there? There's pods everywhere. Who's dying? Who's surviving? Did Jennifer Lawrence, aka Katniss Everdeen, finally realize what is actually occurring throughout these districts? Let's find out. So, did I like this movie? Yes. I did find it better than Part 1, but I would say in a different way. Like, I have no faults with the directing, with the editing, with the acting, with any of these movies. They are all fantastic. Woody Harrelson, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, Liam Hemsworth, Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Banks, Jennifer Lawrence, if I said her name, Josh Hutcherson. They all do a great job. And I have Mahershala Ali, no issues whatsoever. I think this one, though, finally closes off in such a smart and just good way that I do find it a little better than the first one. People might say that this is another Hunger Games. I disagree on that level, but then also I look at this and I go like, who? Like, so you're telling me District 1 always had these random ass traps, and you're like, what are you talking about? These pods are new. What about in that subway station with those little lights that are just like literally like disintegrate people? Are the things in the floor that like literally could saw you up? Like, who installed that? When did that get installed? I don't understand. Where did those come from? But, you know, that's a little nitpicky stuff. Or those little zero-eyed monsters. What are we in the Resident Evil franchise all of a sudden? Like, stuff like that where you're just like, what is going on here? Like, I understand that you're trying to do that horror-esque element to it. And there was some good horror-esque element to it. Because you could tell he did I Am Legend. And you have those little, you know, tropes. I don't want to say tropes, but nods in there. Like, oh, I see what you're doing there. I could see it there. But this one does a great job with the ending. I think if the ending didn't work, the movie wouldn't have worked because the ending is bleak, and you realize, and she finally realizes, I think, that war is horrible. People always try to profit off of it or want power after war, and they don't care about the collateral damage. I think she finally realizes there's always going to be collateral damage in these movies. There's art in war. There's always shit is going to go down, and it's never good for anyone except people in the higher ranks, if you want to put it that way. So, like I said, from the first, second, third, and fourth, I have no problem with the directing, no problem with the acting, no problem with the writing. I do think it is smartly written and smartly produced. Also, the location scouting, very cool. Like, they went to Berlin, Paris, and Atlanta, I think, for this movie, and there's this cool scene with the oil. And again, where did they get all this oil from? I'm just curious, like, did they have a stockpile of oil just somewhere randomly, and they're just going to people? Anyway, I do think there is stuff like that that very much improves the franchise as a whole, where you try to think like, what is this political subtext? What are you trying to say? And does it work? And I do think it does work. Do I think the overall message of the movie is complete? No. And the reason I say that is, even though Jennifer Lawrence thought she was doing good, and now she's back in District 12, does one really think all districts, 13 of them, are going to really live in peace and harmony? The answer is no. If people think that is, they're in a utopia. North Korea, South Korea, Sudan, South Sudan. If you didn't know, there's a huge crisis going on in Sudan right now, and it seems like people are mum. Gaza, Israel, even could say it, Palestinians, Egypt, Palestinians, Jordan, Palestinians, Saudi Arabia, how they don't take those people in whatsoever. So I think she realizes at the end of the movie finally that there is no perfect answer. I need to realize I just got to live my life and try to live it to the fullest. And I think she finally gets it. With Prim dying. And some people don't like the ending because it's very bleak and shit goes down. And especially the end with the propaganda piece where the bombs coming down. I do wish it expanded a little bit on that. I wish there was a little bit more confrontation with that. And what I mean by that is, they vote if they're going to do the final Hunger Games or not. And then she knows Julianne Moore did something wrong. I want that, did you do this? But you kind of get that with Gale's character, which is Liam Hemsworth's character, which you're fine with, but it's not the right you needed. And of course, there's going to be a lot less Philip Seymour Hoffman in this movie because he died of a drug overdose. People say accidental. If you're going to do illegal drugs like black tar heroin, it's not an accidental overdose at that point. It's just an overdose because you're putting stupid shit in your body that probably will kill you. So I don't believe in that phrase whatsoever. But I think this movie is an improvement over part one, but just for the right reasons of where the story goes, the overall messaging, and just the overall experience and realization of what happens and what is really needed in these districts. So overall, I think Mockingjay Part 2 ends the series off extremely well. I think this is one of the rarer franchises where it's consistently good. You have this, you have Lord of the Rings, you have... I wouldn't say the original Star Wars because I rewatched Star Wars Episode 6. That is not a good movie. I'm sorry. You can't say that about The Hobbit. You can't say that about Matrix. You can't say that. You can say about Christopher Nolan's Batmans. There's not a lot you can say that The Hunger Games succeeds. And The Hunger Games, overall, the 4 films, succeeds in what it's trying to do. So Mockingjay Part 2 will receive a 3.5 out of 5 with Futon, which equals at 70%. So let's see the critics' review scores gave this one. The critics a 70% with 294 of them. Audience score 66%, so they think it's actually worse than Part 1 with over 100,000. Critic consensus. With the unflinchingly grim Part 2, The Hunger Games comes to an exciting, potent, and overall satisfying conclusion. Absolutely agree. Have no issues with that. 70, 66, 70. Chase Lock here with the Blue Futon. Like, comment, subscribe. One more thing is Bhutontopia. You Blue Futons, have a great day. And I don't care what to stay tomorrow, week from now, month from now, year from now, every single freaking one of you. So if you watched this already, you know the order. Catching Fire, Hunger Games, Part 2, Part 1, and way below is Songbirds and Snakes. That movie just didn't do it for me whatsoever.